Hey there. Welcome to another great SYCK Career podcast. This one, I'm going to be interviewing Eugina Jordan. And Eugina, I met on LinkedIn. We'll talk a little bit about that. 3 things you want to hear in this episode is how you can control your destiny. You'll hear from Eugina. She's a first-generation American, came from Russia through Canada to the US, and she took control of her career. So you're going to learn that. Secondly, Eugina and I get into a little bit of a debate about should you focus on a job, target a job based on the boss or based on the company? Spoiler alert, I say company, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the podcast. And third thing that we're going to cover here is the importance of advocates and mentors in your career and how to get those. Before we lead into that, I just want to remind you of 3 ways that I can help you accelerate your career. One is through one-on-one coaching. We allow only 10 people in per month. We have a few spots open at this point, so you can go to our website, check that out. Secondly, we have a digital course, so you can do it all on your own and you can figure out how to own your career. Third, you can join our community. It is a growing community of ambitious professionals who want to own their career. It's a low monthly cost, and you can join right away. So go to kademacareers.com, check out all of that stuff, and now listen to this great interview from an amazing, talented woman, Eugina Jordan. Welcome to another episode of the SYCK Career Podcast. Today, I'm really excited to have Eugina Jordan on the podcast. Eugina, like pretty much everyone I invite on the podcast, it seems, I met on LinkedIn. So I am so indebted to Satya Nadella and all the people at Microsoft and LinkedIn for building this community of 900 million people. And Eugina is a particularly special one. She is first generation in this country, and she had a really esteemed career at one of the biggest, most reputable tech companies in the world, at Cisco. Then she moved on to some other things and doing great things. And now she is an author, and I do want to dig into the book that she's writing, and that's a little bit of how we met each other. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to you, Gina, if you want to introduce yourself and tell the SYCK Career audience how we met.
It sounds great, Alan. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm going to start with the summer of 2022 when I was writing my book, and your post popped up. And my book is a leadership book for the underrepresented women, immigrants like me, people of color. And in your LinkedIn title, you say that you help underrepresented. So out of the blue, I sent you the message and you say, yes, absolutely. So the following week, we get on a call and you give me one of the most powerful interviews for my book. And I feature you in the chapter where you talk about that people like me, we need to work a little bit harder, but you also give solid advice how we can still find that balance between family, career, and enjoying life. So for that, I'm very grateful, like you said, to LinkedIn and you as well.
Well, thank you, Gina. And I do really appreciate what immigrants have done to come to this country to figure out all the challenges, which I can't understand, as I was born in New York. I've lived in New York all my life. But for folks to get here, and English is not your first language, is it? No. And so for someone to come here out of their country, out of their native language, and then to succeed, talk to me a little bit about, like, I just think that is such selection bias for the people that make it and the people that come here, that they wind up being more successful because they are the cream of the crop. But tell me about some of the challenges that you've had getting to where you are.
That is a good question because I'm always asked that question why I made it. I'm the telecom executive, I'm a chief marketing officer. I started in the industry 23 years ago as a receptionist. So I'm always asked that question, how's that girl from Russia? At some point of my career, I was a single mom. I was working 2 jobs. I moved out of, I decided to become a single parent by choice because I was in an abusive marriage. So, how's all that made me who I am today and why I made it, and some people don't? And the reason is, like you and I, we discussed, it's because I never put any limits on myself. I realized that this system existed And to succeed in the system, I need to work hard, or maybe harder, not put any limits on myself. Don't allow the system to limit me. Because if I believe that what the system told me, oh, English is your second language, you cannot work in marketing, you're not an engineer, you cannot do technical marketing, then I would have been still a receptionist. So that's number one. Don't put any limits on
Yeah.
yourself. Number two is find mentors and sponsors. Obviously, when immigrants come here, they don't know the culture. So this is where mentors can help. And I had many mentors when I lived in Canada. My friend Michelle, when I joined my first company, Starent, as a receptionist, there were mentors that actually helped me to introduce me to the American culture. And also, it is very important to have sponsors. Sponsors, mentors will help you to become a better version of yourself, unlimit yourself. Sponsors will give you the opportunities because they will see that you work hard, you're smart, you want to succeed. And Starn CEO, Ash Hod, was my sponsor. So it's a formula that anyone can use. So it takes three elements: you, your passion, your hard work, your desire to succeed, and people around you, your mentors, your sponsors, coaches. And that's the success of any immigrant that comes to this country.
Yeah, and I would say almost anybody that wants to succeed in their career does need that mentorship, does need that sponsorship, does need to rely on others. And as an immigrant, someone with perhaps less ties initially when you came into Starend, which got acquired by Cisco and some other things, what did you do differently than others to either develop a mentor mentee relationship? And I always tell people that you can go out and find and ask for mentorship, but you really need to earn advocacy or sponsorship. That you have to earn that over time. But tell me like what you did to find mentors and how you were able to earn and grow advocacy or sponsorship.
Absolutely agrees. No one is going to give you sponsorship unless you've proven yourself, because it's their name attached to you. So Starn CEO wouldn't have given me sponsorship into a marketing career if I didn't prove myself with him for the 6 years. So 100% with you. So how do you ask for mentorship or sponsorship? It's you ask. There's no, if you don't ask, the answer is always a no. So you need to identify people that you want to be your mentors. Majority of my mentors, they found me on LinkedIn. So they would just pop a DM, would you be my mentor? And we get on a call, we figure out if it's the right match, if they're going to do the work. So, but they took the first step, just like I did.
These are people that you mentor now.
Yes, but me, same formula. You identify a person that you admire, and this is my first boss in marketing, Andy Kapner. I admired him. He was a really strong marketer. He was a good person, and I asked him to be my mentor. And the first year, I came to him with questions around marketing, and you just ask. You become curious and you ask questions. So that's how you find mentors. That's someone is willing to help you. And I believe there are different types of mentors, and you need to find the right match. There's a coach, there is a cheerleader. So when I mentor, because of my personality, I'm a cheerleader. I'm like, go, 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 you can do it. So Andy was a coach. He would walk me through different situations. He would give me advice what not to do. He would be like, "Oh, please, Eugina, don't do it ever again."
Yeah.
So, or there's consultants. So, just finding a person and approaching them and getting curious with them how you can get better.
Awesome. And I really love the fact that you have kind of absorbed all these different stories of success throughout your career. I'm guessing that helped to spark your book, Unlimited, the 17 Proven Laws for Success in a Workplace Not Designed for You. And before we dig into that, talk about what does it mean for you for a workplace not designed for you. So you chose those words very diligently and very conscientiously. So when you're saying it's a workplace not designed for you, who is it designed for?
Another great question. So it took me 23 years, maybe a little less, maybe 15, to realize that American system was built by white men for white men. So the thing is, when I moved from Russia to Canada in 95 and then from Canada to the US in 2000, because I was not grown up here, I didn't realize that there's a system, corporate system. I was a naive Russian, lady with 2 degrees, master's in teaching and computer undergrad from Canada. So I came here for my American dream. So I thought everyone deserves the American dream if we work hard and smart. So call me naive, but also ignorance is a bliss, because when people would tell me, oh no, you cannot do it, I'm like, why can't I do it? Like, you are here in this position. Why not me? So, and what propelled me in my career, asking, why not me? Why is it I'm as smart as you? I have a college degree. I'm willing to work as hard. So why not me?
Yeah. And it's definitely not designed for women. It's definitely not designed for immigrants. It's definitely not designed for people that English is not the first language, or wherever you are, if it's not your primary language. I would almost argue that a workplace is almost not designed for employees. It is only designed for the leaders or for the investors often. I'm not like, I don't want to strum the world's smallest violin here and say, oh, woe is me. But it is just sucky for everybody that is reporting to a boss, that reports to a boss, that reports to a boss, that goes up to an organization that may have some rules but are not applied equally across the board. And it probably gets applied less equally and more biased against women, against people that don't have those support from above. So who knows how to play the game right? Like you're saying, it's like a game that was, or like a a structure that was built by white men to serve white men. Is it white men or white men in charge, which could be synonymous?
I think it is synonymous. So I would answer your question in two ways. Number one is don't choose a company when you're looking for a job, choose a really good boss.
Hmm.
So, like Ash the Horde, Andy Kapner were amazing bosses because they saw a human that wanted to succeed, and they helped me realize my full potential. When I was in transition last year, I had many opportunities to go to big companies, small companies, and I selected very carefully because my current boss is committed to making not only the industry better, telecom, but also making change the how we look at talent, how we develop talent. And he believes into finding the best talent, developing the best talent, and giving opportunities to all. So that's, answer
Yeah.
number one, choose a boss. Answer number two is when people like me, underrepresented, we reach the level of when we become leaders and we have a platform, it is our responsibility to make sure the workplace we design is good for all of us. So it's our responsibility to educate on bias and help to remove bias, because the data that I use in my book, women represent 51% of the population in the United States. Middle management is 35% in my industry, right? So telecom. And then in the C-suite, it's 12%.
Yeah.
Why is such a drop off? So it is responsibility of the 12 percenters like me to make sure that we bring that pipeline from universities to middle management through sponsorship, through mentorship, and improve the 12% is in the C-suite, the number.
Yeah, and that's really like disappointing but not shocking data that you're sharing there, and that pyramid as you go up becomes less and less diverse, and which leads to less and less, yeah, which leads to all those biases that are being passed downward into the organization. So you've been fortunate, and you've kind of taken proactive charge of kind of finding your path. You've made a lot of proactive choices to leave an abusive relationship, to come to first Canada, then the US, build rapport and mentorship. I'm guessing that was one of the 17 proven laws of success in your book about proactivity. You don't have to share all 17 of those proven laws, but I would love for you to share a few of those proven laws that help people succeed in a world that is not designed for them.
Great question. So, three parts in my book, they talk about three different aspects of the laws. I group them. The first grouping is control your destiny. So, one of the laws, we have a choice. We cannot act as a victim. We have a choice to get education, find another job, speak up. Because I was in situations where I was marginalized as well. I was in situations where there were microaggressions thrown at me saying, or jokes about Russians and things like that. So I've experienced it all as well. And despite that, I didn't allow it to marginalize me. So that's, very important law is understanding we can control our own destiny. That's part number one. Self-awareness. It's one of the laws, understanding how our emotions, how control our emotions, how thoughts control our emotions.
Yes.
Because I know I'm awesome. I know my value. So if someone tells me, I speak with an accent or I made this mistake, like I make mistakes sometimes in my LinkedIn posts and I get DMs, I should be embarrassed. No freaking way. It's not gonna, little tiny mistake is not gonna take away from my accomplishments, 23 years of, a, being in telecom industry, starting the new market category. So that's a very important law is choice. We all have a choice how to react, it being self-aware. I see you smiling when I'm talking about,
Yes. I
because
know
we have.
this stuff resonates with me. You got to understand what you can control and what you can't control. There's probably a lot more things you cannot control, but there's lots of high leverage things that you can control. You can choose when to leave a crappy boss. You can choose when to leave a crappy relationship. You can choose to find a good boss or to find a good company or things like that. So, yes, I was smiling and nodding. And we'll get back in a second because I do want to talk about the boss thing in a second. But okay, so taking proactive charge, controlling your destiny. Those are some good tips on the
That's part
success
number one.
factors.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
That's part number one. Then part number two is what you and I, we talked about is finding your support circle. You cannot do it
Hmm.
alone. It takes a village. So there are communities that you can build, networking. What you and I did on LinkedIn last year, it was networking. So I reached out to you for help for my book. And you are, as you know, Adam Grant identifies, you're a giver. So you, without asking for anything in return, you help me out with my book. So networking is the way I look at it. You look at it. It's giving first.
Yeah. Yeah. And Adam Grant's book, I'm a big fan of his, Give and Take, where he talks about there's givers out there, there's takers, and then I think he calls traders somewhere in between. And I think there's a lot of data that he uses in the book, but givers just, it winds up working better. Like to have people, I find, have one of two different mindsets usually: an abundance mindset that there's plenty to go around, or a scarcity mindset. And I think that drives a lot of their actions and thoughts and what they choose to do or not do.
Absolutely. So I believe that success is not a pie. Pie has a number limited of slices, right? So once the last slice is gone, it's gone. there's enough, success to go around for everyone.
Yeah.
So it's not a pie. Share it, celebrate each other, give. Because I'm a great example of when I was in transition, and 600 of folks in my previous company were in transition. My LinkedIn network gave an abundance. So I put so much deposits into their bank account. So when I was in transition, they not only helped me, but they also help people in transition. All our competitors, they created task forces, they sent jobs to my private LinkedIn group. So, great example. When you give, when you need, and you ask, people will give back. So, that's the second part.
Yeah, no, that's great. And so I was shaking my head vociferously in agreement in most of the things that you say. One thing that I want to dig into a little bit, if you're cool, I don't know if it's a debate, but you say to look for jobs and look for opportunities based on the manager. I would twist that a little bit. I was like, I think it's extremely important that you have a good manager. And without a good manager, it's going to be darn hard to succeed. But I think it's really hard to control the manager that you have. And the reason I say that is because I'm someone who's worked for 21 companies. I've had 29 jobs. I've had 38 different bosses. And the bosses can change. So I could wind up going to a company and all of a sudden my boss may leave or I might get reorged or whatever may happen. So I personally say go for the company, go for companies that have a higher propensity of good managers, but don't get hung up on the manager at first because a manager may or may not change. However, if you are stuck in a situation where the manager is holding you back, and it's great if they're an advocate, but if they are a detriment to you, get the hell out of there. So you said before, go follow the boss. And I have followed bosses before. And then we can talk about those. But I say follow the company. Target the company that has a predisposition of good bosses. Love your thoughts on that.
So, I think what you're saying is good bosses equal good culture.
Yes. Good cultures, it's hard to say what creates what. It could be correlation, it
Mhm.
could be causation, but I think organizations with good cultures tend to have good management.
Yes. So, I think it's a combination of good management, but also speaking up, because I lost once a promotion. I had a wonderful manager. Everyone loved me. Great culture, but I lost a promotion because I didn't speak up for myself.
Hmm.
So it's a combination of good culture, good managers, but also advocating for yourself, like you said. So I think it's a great advice to your listeners, because it's a combination. Find a good boss, knowing that nothing is consistent in this life, it might change, and also learn how to advocate. So build a relationship with the new boss.
Yes.
I always advise people that I talk to when they start, new jobs, my friends. I said, give your boss a manual to
Hmm.
yourself. They don't know how you operate. So, and that's what, when I started a tip back in September, I followed my own advice. I explained to my boss how I operate, what I do, how I lead, how I react. So we've built a really good relationship now. If I have an issue, I can WhatsApp him, because it's, he is in Europe, and can, ask him to get on a call and talk any issues through. But it takes being vulnerable and saying,
Yeah.
boss, this is my weak point, this is my strength, and I might react sometimes in certain way because of certain things. So it's building that trust with your boss, even if the person changes. It's all comes down to two humans building that connection and trust, so they can work as a team to deliver on their objectives.
Yeah. I think that's spot on. Have you left roles, and you don't need to say the specific ones, but have you left roles specifically because of a boss that was not supportive of you or not, or preventing your growth? If
Um,
not, that's okay, because I don't want you to say the name, but if there is an incident there, I do want to dig into that.
there was none. There was none.
Okay.
I always gravitated towards good bosses and I
Yeah.
always advocated for myself.
And even in that case where you mentioned that you failed to get a promotion one time, even though your boss was advocating for you, I think you said he gave you feedback that you needed to advocate for yourself a bit more. So
Correct.
yeah,
Exactly.
that's a sign of a good boss. He's giving you feedback. Or is it a he? Was it a he
It was a
or a he or she?
she, but
Sorry.
then I applied this advice in my previous company because I was waiting for a promotion and I applied that advice. I was advocating for myself. And I also went to the boss and I said, give me the milestones because
Right.
saying, oh, you're not strategic enough, it's not a milestone. How do you see me being strategic? What do I need to do? Let's set up milestones and then let's meet monthly to see how I'm meeting those milestones and take corrective action if needed.
Got it. Yeah, that's great. And when you have a manager that does give you that feedback and is open to, and you were kind of controlling the situation too, you were saying, hey, I want feedback on this. So you're someone who has really leveraged the power of a network. On LinkedIn, you have over 32,000 followers. You were a member of Chief. You and I met. Talk to me about some of your strategies of how you've been able to build this network, because it's clear that the network and building those relationships has had lots of value for you. But how did you go from, you had 0 followers at one point, now you have 32,000 followers. You had like 0 people in your network, now you have thousands of people in your network. So how did you get from there to here?
Great question. So I had a very strong telecom network because I've been in telecom all my career. And it's a very niche environment. So I realized in 2020 that my network was limited. And then I saw posts about Chief popping up all over my LinkedIn because they were opening up a Boston chapter. And I said, oh my God, it's a great opportunity for me to expand my network with executive women, not just in telecom, but in different industries.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a founding member in Boston. I built a community here. And then I also met some amazing women they featured in my book in New York, in DC, in Washington, D.C., in San Francisco, in Denver, all over US. So, and what I loved about Chief is the support from its members. Women are absolutely amazing. When I was in my transition and I posted in the Chief app that I was laid off, my team was laid off, people send me DMs saying, how can I help? So, and though I left Chief because I needed to concentrate on my book and I'm moving and my son is going to college, the network never left me. I'm still in all WhatsApp groups. We're on LinkedIn. We're still, and that's why I'm so grateful to Chief, because if it weren't for Chief, I wouldn't have met the most amazing, the most accomplished, the kindest, the most given humans that are also badass leaders. So that's what the network is all about, connections. And you build that connection, one post, one DM, one offer to help at a time.
Yeah. And your network continues to grow after year, opportunity after opportunity. So it's like a big snowball that rolls down the mountain and gets bigger and bigger. So you have all those women of Chief behind you. You have the people of Cisco behind you. You have the people in the telecom industry, which overlaps with Cisco, and it keeps growing. And you can keep like getting the benefit of that momentum going forward. And in addition to just people reaching out to you, you've been proactive of reaching out to individuals. So the way that you said that you reached out to me, you saw a post of mine, you saw something on my profile that looked interesting, so you reached out as well. So it's not all people coming to you, but you are proactively reaching out to others as well. I'd love like some tips on how you have reached out to people. Like I know you did it with me, but if you want to connect with somebody, And you said earlier that it's important to ask. So if you ask for help, ask for mentorship, ask for support, how do you find out who to reach out to? And then how do you reach out to them?
So recently, I've reached out to a few interesting people for my book, and and it's just reaching out because I know it might be a no, so but it could be a yes. So it's just getting the guts and saying, you know what, I'm just gonna reach out, I'm gonna ask for help, and I'm gonna offer help. So, and it's hard sometimes for people to say, oh my God, I don't know this person, if they're going to say no. Okay, so they're going to say no, then you're going to reach to another person. So and it's not about, you connect with someone on LinkedIn and you right away ask them for, pitch them, or you ask them to for something. It's you build the relationship a little bit. And I know when I sent it to you, I did ask right away. I said, Alan, I love what you're doing. And I'm writing this book for the underrepresented. I'm on a deadline, and you would, kindly agree. So I was a little aggressive, I admit. But the best advice is you offer help to your network on new connection first. You build that relationship a little bit, and then you ask if they would help out. So don't do how I did it with Alan. I got lucky with you. So that's my advice.
Well, I'm looking back at the message, and like as you're talking now, and this was in July of 2022, and you're like, "Hello," you don't even use my name. I'm writing a leadership development book for underrepresented, and was wondering if you had 15 to 20 minutes for me to interview you. Thank you, Eugina. So I figured that this was like a canned thing. I'm sure I was not the only one that you sent this to. I'm sure you
No, no,
sent it
no,
to hundreds of
actually,
people.
no, 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 you were the only one through LinkedIn, because the rest, it was my
Okay.
connections from
So
Chief
you
or
didn't even
from.
personalize it by saying my name? You could have said hello, Alan. If I
I
was the only
know.
one.
I know, Alan. So, and you see, you are a giver, and that's why you forgave me. So,
Well, I am a generally giving person. I'm having a harder time with that as my time gets tighter. But what also caused me to accept this opportunity, because a lot of people say, "Oh, you want to come to my podcast, or you want to." The book is a little rarer, but they give you all these things of like, "Oh, do you want to be interviewed for this article?" I usually turn them down. But what I did is I looked at your profile. I was like, "Oh, this woman's impressive." I was impressed with where you came through. I I looked at that, and then I got back to you. 19 minutes later, I'm looking because I took quick action on that. And probably I get distracted a little too much on LinkedIn. But you were not fearful of asking. And I appreciate that about you. I think that's probably opened a lot of doors for you throughout your career. Are there other times when you've asked people for things and you thought it was kind of a Hail Mary? You didn't think that they would respond, and they did. And it turned out positive.
so I just want to say thank you, Alan, for being so kind and giving me some tips. Since then, I learned to include people's names and not to be as
That's not
pushy.
my tip. That's Dale Carnegie's tip.
I,
Dale
I
Carnegie says, and he's dead, but he was a pretty smart guy in terms of communication and how to win friends and influence people.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. So it's a little pushy, personality
Yeah.
in me. So I'm always learning, and I'm always open to feedback. I appreciate that. So the one piv- pivoting moment for my career when I asked, and it was Hail Mary, it's when I walked into Starr's CEO office, when I was his executive assistant, I was his chief of staff, I managed board of directors, I managed the whole executive team, internal communications, you name it, administrative staff, and I wanted to move into marketing. There was an entry level marketing manager position. So I was really scared if he was going to let me go, because I was so important to how we managed, the company and the business. And I didn't know what he was going to say. So I marched in and I just asked again. Maybe I did say good morning. right? So maybe I said, good morning, Ash. I don't remember. But maybe like with you, I said, okay, Ash, this is what I need. So, and I'm so grateful that he said he got up from his desk. It was early in the morning. The sun was shining, winter day, 2007. And he got up. He saw that I was nervous and he came to me, gave me a hug, and he said, I cannot stop you from growing. And that's simple
Wow.
sentence changed my career.
Wow. That's impressive. I don't know how many people would give people hugs nowadays, but I think that is great to hear. And now we're over Zoom anyway, so you could just give someone a thumbs up or an emoji or something like that, a hug emoji. Well, Eugina, we are wrapping up in time, and you've given lots of amazing advice here to the SYCK career audience. I'd love if you could leave one parting piece of SYCK career advice that you want to make sure that my listeners leave this podcast with.
I know you asked me at the beginning of the podcast, and as we were talking, it still comes down to
Yes.
asking why not me?
Yep.
Because if you don't ask for the job, for the promotion, for the project, for the salary, the answer is going to be no.
Yep.
So it's just get the courage, practice in front of the mirror, practice with your relatives, practice with your friends, and just go and ask for what you deserve.
That is some SYCK advice. It's the same thing that my father-in-law always tells me and my kids, his grandkids. You don't get what you don't ask for. So great SYCK advice there. And then the last question, how can people follow you, find you, get in touch with you, learn from your wisdom? What's the best way for people to do that?
Oh, that's so kind, calling me a wise woman. So I have a website, euginajordan.com, or I'm always available on LinkedIn. And again, it's Eugina Jordan, Eugina with an I. And we can connect on LinkedIn, DM me. And if you need any help or if you want to learn more about my book, so I'm always there, LinkedIn or my website.
Awesome. And we will spell your name on the podcast, but for people that are listening, it is spelled Eugina, Jordan, like the basketball star. Although I don't know, that's the only commonality I think you have with Air Jordan.
That is actually, and also I'm not afraid of failures, right? And I'm
Yes,
not
that's
afraid
true.
of taking my shots.
I believe he has missed the third most amount of shots in the history of basketball. Number one is Kobe Bryant. So there's no embarrassment with missing your shots. Kobe Bryant's missed 14,481. I don't remember how many MJ had missed. But anyway, Eugina, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks for reaching out to me back in July of 2022. Thanks for all the great posts that you put on LinkedIn. I love watching those and love seeing everything that you're doing. And thank you for taking the time to share your wisdom with the SYCK career audience.
Thank you for having me.
That wraps up another remarkable episode of the SYCK Career Podcast with Alan Stein. Check out past episodes and other resources on the website. That's syckpodcast.com, and it's SYCK. Alan, tell the audience about the newsletter they can sign up for.
The newsletter rocks. Check out the accelerator, XLR8R. You will get great tips about your career. You'll get honest insights. You will get the occasional pet picture. And you will learn how to take proactive control and take charge of your career.
Very good. Very good. That's syckpodcast.com, SYCK. For your host, Alan Stein, I'm Russ Reba, and we hope you've enjoyed today's episode. You are going to love the next one.